really got to stay motivated and you got to shut down the noise around you and really focus on listening to the things that are important that keep the movement and the forward movement of your vision going, because there are going to be a lot of things in your ear and a lot of thoughts in your mind that tell you about all the reasons why something cannot work, that if you focus on those things so much, you'll never actually propel yourself to a quantum leap in your vision, and it'll impede on your ability to really grow and sustain your dreams.
Welcome to Behind the Work, the show where we dive deep into the business, life, and careers of people doing some amazing things in the world. I'm your host, Jessica Santana, and I'm bringing you the stories behind the sexy and unsexy parts of success. So whether you're working at a company, building your business, or you're just trying to level up, this is for you. At Behind the Work, we believe that we all have to go up together, so make sure you're tapped in.
So we're doing something new, y'all. To be honest with you, after a decade of running America on Tech, I had an opportunity to travel through South and Central America for 2 months. And I think that when you've had your foot on the gas for such a long time and you've been an entrepreneur for such a long time, you don't actually realize how much you need rest. And rest for me really gave me the clarity that in this next season of my life, I really wanted to make sure that I use the little bit of a platform that I've been able to build over the last 10 years, the relationships that I've been able to nurture the last 10 years, to create a space where many of us would have the opportunity to learn about the sexy and unsexy parts of success. I think that for folks that have met me in most recent years, they have attached themselves to this idea that I have been super successful from the beginning, that AOT or just all my business endeavors from, the beginning at the top of my head came to fruition really fast and really quickly. But what people don't know is that it has actually been a really, really big journey for this brown girl right here to go from, being the first person in her family to being an entrepreneur, to where I am now. And I think that for many of us, we are operating under smoke and mirrors, right? There's not a lot of information that get people to understand the journeys that people follow and the journeys that people take in order to get to their end outcome of success. And for me, in this season of my life, I really want to demystify to people that if they want to be whatever they want to be and they want to become whatever they want to become, that they can do so. But the path towards getting there is actually pretty difficult. And you got to trust the process and you can't be attached to the outcome. And so, we're doing something new with this podcast. And I've actually been really nervous since declaring to the world that I am going to be starting something new for several reasons. One, when you're an entrepreneur, you know that sometimes your ideas don't always flourish and you have to be attached to the idea of failure. And for me, as someone who is still a little bit risk averse as an entrepreneur, the idea of putting this out there and it not going well kind of scares the shit out of me. I'm not even gonna lie. And then the second reason is because this is the first time I'm actually starting something by myself. You guys know that I have had a co-founder in Evan for a long time, for anyone that has been following the journey. And having a co-founder has really created a safe space for me to always have someone to lean on and someone to share my fears to. But the reality is that, him and I, we've built something really incredible, and I really wanted to see if I could bet on myself by putting this project out there and see if it actually would resonate with people. And so while I am really scared about putting this stuff out there and creating this show, I also know that, you got to feel the fear and you got to do it anyway. So what I want to talk to you all about today is just my journey from, being a Brooklyn girl all the way to having built a 10-year organization, and what that has looked like for me and why it was even important for me to do so in the first place. I think that sometimes when we're on social media, we oftentimes see these really amazing figures that have had these big careers, but we don't always understand their origin stories. And I think for me, I'm really in a season where I want to be more transparent about where I'm from and what I'm about and what I represent. So for those of you who are new, I was born and raised in East New York, Brooklyn. I grew up in Pink House Projects. My family is still in Pink House Projects. They probably not leaving there no time soon. And I'm a proud product of New York City public schools. I was in public schools in New York City from K through 12. And I think that when we talk about Brooklyn now, it is like this romanticized idea of Dumbo and Williamsburg and all the hipsters, but I grew up in real Brooklyn, okay? My community in East New York still has not been gentrified, still has not been touched. We have Gateway Mall and stuff like that, but the reality of the situation is that East New York is still an area that has been consistently overlooked and underinvested for many, many years. And I think that growing up in East New York and seeing what I saw really showed me that no matter where you're from, genius is equally distributed, but opportunity is not. Because time and time again, I have seen some of the smartest people on the block be the same people that don't get access to the same spaces that I've gotten access to. And it didn't really become clear to me what privilege and opportunity looked like until I actually became the first person in my family to pursue a 4-year college university degree at a private school. I'm a proud Syracuse University alum, and I think when I first got my foot on campus and I stepped foot on campus, I was like, oh wow, like there's a whole different world out here that nobody really told me about. And I think there was definitely for me a lot of dissonance between where I was currently operating while I was in college and then where I would go, when I was going back home to still see my family. And that for me was the first time that I saw like privilege and opportunity really manifest itself in front of me, because the reality of the situation is that when you are from the hood, like you don't actually even know that you're really poor because everybody around you is poor. We all going to the bodegas. We all having the bacon, egg, and cheese. We all having the turkey sandwiches and, the quarter waters and all that. But when you go to, when you kind of leave your block and you kind of get exposed to other things, you start to realize that that is not the story for everyone. And so for me, when I went to Syracuse, it was a defining moment in my personal life and in my career, where I told myself, no matter how successful I got, that I was going to live and breathe the theme of lifting as I climb. Because the reality is that when we go up, we all gotta go up together. And so over the last many years after I graduated campus, I really started my career in the private sector. And it was one of the most, I think, impressive things that I've ever done. It was literally me living my ancestors' wildest dreams. At least that's what I thought at the time. My family, my family really always wanted me to make it out, quote unquote, make it out of the hood. And so for them, success was defined by me getting my degree and then ultimately getting a job. But I think that once I got to this job and I realized that I was making about 5 or 6 times my family's household income, I actually realized that that was not my wildest dreams. I realized that I was going to be able to build a career and climb the corporate ladder, and I was going to be able to create opportunities for myself. But there was something really wrong about this idea and this notion that I would be doing this alone. And for me, as someone who's always been invested in community, it was really important for me to keep it real with myself and say to myself, Jessica, could you really build a career in corporate America and be okay with just you eating alone? You know what I mean? Like, it actually takes me back to like the Paid in Full movie, where it's like everybody eats, B. And I felt like I was in a space where I was like, yo, everybody is not eating. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just me making this bread, but like, who else is out here making the bread with me? And I think at the time, the only other person in my life that was from where I'm from and has seen what I've seen and understands what I'm fighting for was Evan. And Evan has played a tremendous role in my life as my best friend and my co-founder. And ultimately, we got to a point where we realized that what we were fighting for was more than just economic empowerment for ourselves. It was really about fighting for economic empowerment for everybody. And so we got together in 2014 at a local coffee shop, and we started, creating the blueprint. I gotta say the blueprint because, Jigga Man. But, we started creating the blueprint on back of coffee shop napkins for the idea for what was Brooklyn on Tech at the time that has now become America on Tech. And when we were first getting started with building our social enterprise, we realized one, no one in our family has ever done this. Two, we spent countless hours in the library trying to read books on how do you manage a board? How do you raise capital? How do you raise money? How do you build corporate partnerships? And the reality is that the information was pretty scarce. And, Evan and I stayed really resilient throughout that process. And I think particularly for me, I felt as if I was a fish out of water because I had this idea and this passion, to build something that was sustainable and beautiful for my community. But I also just was not getting the information that I needed to do that in a way that was going to be sustainable and long term. And outside of the fact that I already felt ill-equipped and unqualified to do this work, I also felt that I was really one of the only women of color that I ever saw, leading a successful social enterprise. And I really did not like that. And I told myself that when I got to the point where I figured this out, that I would start something that would be meaningful to other women of color who are trying to build sustainable social impact organizations. And so, after, Evan and I have figured it out, I'm thinking back to 2017. This was the first time where I feel like people started taking us seriously is when we got on the Forbes 30 and the 30 list. And for me at the time, people were like, oh my God, this is amazing, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't think what people realized was that when Evan and I got on the Forbes 30 and the 30 list, for me personally, I obviously can't speak for him, but when we got on this list, I felt like we were being validated for something incredible that we were doing. But the reality is that we were doing nothing different in 2017 than what we were doing in 2014 when we first started our organization. And it was the first time where I had to reconcile feelings around, what it looks like to be validated in public and what that actually meant for our work. And we really took that as an opportunity to, be opportunistic and create a movement that we knew would sustain the organization and create opportunities for students and families. But on a personal level, it was one of the first times where I was like, that's actually kind of crazy that something like being on the Forbes list could validate you when nothing about our work at that point had changed. And so since then, our work has continued to grow. And in 2019, we went from just being a New York City-based organization to being a national organization. We established offices in New York, LA, Miami, and our fourth office is going to open up this spring in the Atlanta region. But the reality is that, the beginning stages of this really was not pretty. And I would even say it's still not pretty today, right? There are a lot of things that happen, in your entrepreneurial journey that you cannot account for. But the one thing I'll say is that I learned is that you really got to stay resilient and you really got to stay motivated and you got to shut down the noise around you and really focus on listening to the things that are important that keep the movement and the forward movement of your vision going, because there are going to be a lot of things in your ear and a lot of thoughts in your mind that tell you about all the reasons why something cannot work, that if you focus on those things so much, you'll never actually propel yourself to a quantum leap in your vision, and it'll impede on your ability to really grow and sustain your dreams. And so When I dreamt this idea up of the podcast, I was sitting on this balcony in Cartagena, Colombia. And there is something about water and views that really motivates your girl. And for those that know me and follow me, know that I also am like a little bit of an artist. And so I was there, I had my canvas, I had my paintings, and I was painting this piece. And I just kept hearing from the water, just like it's time for you to use your voice and it's time for you to share your story. And I think for me, when I feel like something is a calling from God, then I always make sure to respond to it. And this was the first time in the moment where I heard directly from the universe that this was something that I needed to do. I've had the idea for Behind the Work for a really, really long time. And I never moved on it because I didn't feel like it was the right time. But the one thing I'll say is that the universe will align to give you the things that you need to be able to pursue your dreams. And this is a new dream for me that I'm really excited to launch and bring into the world. And so with that being said, this was the intro episode. I have so much more that I'm so excited to share with each and every one of you. And make sure that you stay tuned to everything that the show is going to be producing over the next couple of months and years and decades, because I have so much love to share with the world. I have so much information to share with the world. And I really hope that you all will continue to be a part of the journey with me as I am also growing in this journey as well. Thank you all so much, and I'll see you all next week.
Thanks for listening to Behind the Work. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a rating and a review. Follow us on YouTube and on social media. I want to hear how this show is leaving an impact on you.